let's dig into Colorado and Oregon. We had always looked at this point in the schedule. It is Oregon this week in Eugene. Then how about that 9 a.m. Pacific time kickoff for USC and Colorado next week? That'll be probably in next week's big game breakdown. So when you sort the top 10 to 12 teams, however you break it down, there are only 2 teams that have, among the peers, outlier defenses in terms of it being a little bit of a weakness. Oregon is one of those. Tom, do you think that Oregon's defense is going to end up providing enough stops and enough resistance to be able to control this game against the Buffs?
It's hard to say because for a lot of the game last week, Colorado State's defense did a pretty decent job of stopping Colorado, and Nebraska's defense did a very decent job of stopping Colorado a lot. So I can't rule it out. I think the bigger question is how many stops is Colorado going to get in this game? Because I have my own little metric. I shared it with you yesterday, Chip. It's a performance metric for offensive lines and defensive lines based on a variety of factors. The number 1 offensive line in the country so far this season is Oregon. It's led by center Jackson Powers Johnson, who I drafted in my Oklahoma drill during the offseason, and the Joe Moore Award shared a clip of him this week, pancaking a defender into the 5th dimension, just to remind everybody why I drafted him in that draft. But anyways, it's an offensive line that has been very, very good. Colorado's defensive line ranks 96th, and largely that is skewed by the Nebraska game and the turnovers and the tackles for loss, which if you take that out, it has not been very good. I just don't know how often Colorado is going to get stops in this game. And Oregon is a team that to this point has looked very impressive on offense, but has also kind of looked like it's going half speed sometimes, whereas it's not really hitting the gas. And I am wondering what's going to happen in a game like this where they're going to hit the gas. But I also think back to that Texas Tech game where, like, kind of what you were getting at, Chip, defensively, Texas Tech was able to move the ball a little bit in that game and make it uncomfortable for the Ducks, but then they adjusted and they got their crap together and played well. So if they do that from the outset in this game, I think Colorado is talented enough to where when I'll peek ahead till tomorrow, I guess. Like when you look at the spread, I don't trust Oregon's defense enough against this Colorado offense to think that they're going to cover it more often than not. I'm leaning towards the Buffs on that side. But at the end of the day, like I just said, I don't think Colorado's getting any stops unless Oregon does something really stupid and turns it over or fumble or whatever. I just do not see the Buffs keeping that team off the field any more than they want to.
I think this is kind of a uniquely bad matchup for Colorado. And I've had to adjust my power rating on Colorado quite a bit, but just purely on matchups. Shedeur Sanders leads the nation in times hit, right? And to Colorado's credit, they know they can't run the ball, and they don't try. They're not about wasting downs. They can't afford to waste downs on the run game. Like once in a while, they'll try to pop one to keep them honest, but they really don't. Like they know they can't run it. So Colorado passes almost every play. And Shedeur does lead the nation in yards lost to sacks. Mm-hmm. So like from an efficiency standpoint, that makes a lot. Like what Colorado does is really smart. And they should, like their staff should be commended for not just trying to hold true to some kind of, North Star of balance. But Oregon is really good at interior pass rush. Dorless and Popo are legitimately, like, they gave Texas Tech some problems on the inside. And Texas Tech is not a bad offensive line when it comes to pass pro, at least not on the interior. Oregon's also been really damn good in coverage. If you looked at what happened there, it was basically scramble stuff, and Tyler Shuck ran for over 100. I think quarterback run has got Oregon a little bit so far this year. Shedeur is a pocket passer to the core. He does not run. Like he waits until the very last second and then takes off. And I do think that increasingly, like, Colorado has scored fewer points in regulation every single game, right? It was 45 or 48 against TCU, something huge. And then they scored like 30 something against Nebraska. And then they only had 28 in regulation against Colorado State. And increasingly, teams are just dropping everybody, cleaning up the underneath stuff and saying, Colorado, you're not very physical. Can you score on us in the red zone? And to their credit, like they found ways to beat some of that cover two stuff in very late in the game against Colorado State using that tight end. But I think they'll dare Colorado to run the ball against light box. I think they'll get consistent pressure up the gut against Colorado's offense, and that means you get Shedeur on the move a lot, and we'll see how that goes. On the flip side, to Tom's point, Oregon is number 1 in the nation in havoc allowed by the offensive line.
Mhm.
Colorado doesn't get any havoc. And the thing is, Bo Nix ain't greedy, right? Oregon throws the ball less than 3 yards down the field more than any team in the country this year. And I don't think it's because they can't throw it deep. I think it's because Bo Nix is extremely comfortable taking a profit all the time. It's part of their RPO game. Colorado has just been drop 8, drop 8, drop 8. But the difference here is Oregon could score in the red zone. Colorado has not been a great red zone team. It wouldn't surprise me if this is a little bit lower scoring, actually, just with both teams like not blitzing a lot and not choosing to blitz. But I think Oregon's much better at operating in that type of space.
When you don't have to blitz to get pressure, it's a massive problem for you. And I think that's what Oregon's going to try to do. Then you can disguise coverages, you can play more zone, you can, just confuse. Trivia.
Yes.
Ready for it. So Colorado's averaging more than 5 sacks a game. That's worse in the country. Anybody know how many sacks allowed Oregon has?
None.
0?
1 sack.
Yeah.
How about even better? How many turnovers do they have?
None.
0. I do think this is a bad matchup for Colorado. If it was 7-on-7, thinking maybe it'd be kind of fun, to see what they could do going back and down, up and down the field against each other. The skill set of the Colorado, especially on offense, has been really impressive. And the depth, different guys kind of coming to the forefront, especially without Travis Hunter. Super bummed that he can't play in this game, obviously. By the way, shout out to Deion, because I thought that was a top 3 Deion moment. What he said yesterday about the hit from Henry Blackburn, and said, hey, let's all cool it off. We forgive him. Travis, great job by Deion for kind of diffusing the situation. But I really do think this is a bad matchup. I think this is, I want to say exposed, but I think this is kind of where the Colorado kind of train comes to a halt against Oregon.
Water finds its level. This is
will Fox feel dumb for making USC Colorado? Like after this game, is Fox gonna be like, oh yeah, that was not a great call?
I don't think they care because
people will be watching.
Exactly. I don't think they care. Now, if they go to the Arizona State game, then it's like if they announce that one early, then they could feel dumb.
All right. Will we do big game breakdown on USC Colorado next week after watching this game?
Yes.
Because of SEO or because we think it's actually one of the big games?
Yes.
Well, because it's because it's USC and Colorado, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing USC Arizona State or USC and against the junior college of pizza men that are signing up to go play.
That Italian joke? What was that?
Look, all these games we've done so far are not more than a 3 touchdown score.
Not pizza man, pizza guy. You know what I'm saying? They don't have anybody. Everybody's hurt. They're just pulling guys off the street to come play for Arizona State. Hey, I
got a fun little stat though to back up something Bud said about Bo Nix. Oregon has thrown for 1,073 yards so far this season. 727 of them have come after the catch. That is a 67.8% of their passing yards after the catch. The national average is 48.5%. So that just gives you an idea.
Approach.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are not forcing anything. Like they're just like very cool with taking what's open. Like how many turnover-worthy throws does Nix have?
Mm-hmm.
Game manager.
Interesting you mentioned turnovers. So in 26 career home games across Auburn and Oregon, how about 63 total touchdowns and only 3 interceptions for Bo Nix?
Mm-hmm.
What does pace look like here? Because so far, Colorado has clearly felt like pace was an advantage for them. This is the first time when I actually think pace could be a mistake for Colorado. Or do they just try to get Shedeur numbers regardless? Because if you go pace, he'll get his numbers even if they lose.
You tweeted out something that I thought was like the only chance that Colorado would have in this game. You noticed it. I think everybody noticed it. Like when they were down 11 and Shedeur started he was a little more off the cuff, started scrambling around, buying time, because he really wasn't doing that throughout the game. He was kind of staying within himself, and it wasn't working great, but he wasn't, killing them with the turnovers. He had the 1 interception, but it was very calm. Can he keep doing that sort of magical? Because he does have an elusivity that is, what's kind of catching everybody's eyes. He's not taking the huge hits. Yeah, he took the one dirty hit late, but he's kind of he has that slithery, presence about him that, buys time, and then he either hits a big play or he throws it away. Can Shedeur, you talk about putting on the Superman cape. Like if he does it in this game, he's already getting all the love and deservedly so. But if he does it again, like that all of a sudden does make him, I think, into that stratosphere of, okay, let's really start comparing him to, I want to say Caleb Williams, because I saw some people, I think Caleb Williams is on his own, but does he enter the conversation with Drake May and Quinn Ewers and, which he already probably has, but if he does it against Oregon, that'll probably push him right to number 2.
Going back to the pace comment, so far in regulation, because I didn't want the overtime to skew it from last week. In regulation, Colorado is averaging 146.7 snaps, offense and defense combined, per game. That's the 5th most nationally.
And they play at altitude, and we know their depth is poor.
And Travis Hunter's only playing like 120 of them.
Yeah, and that's double what Michigan does.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is interesting here is these teams both run basically the same defense, right? It's Charles Kelly and it's Dan Lanning. One's Saban, one's Kirby, but they're both off the same tree. If you're landing in this defensive staff, you're working with your offensive staff over the last 3 weeks, and you're saying, hey, let's think back to when we installed this defense when we first got here last year. And in fairness, they ran kind of some similar stuff under Mario at times, but like just from a clean slate install, because everybody's new at Colorado, what do they not do well? What do they not check well? What do they not pass off well? What kind of adjustments? Like, what that defense is supposed to look like. So you're uniquely prepared to try to look and say, okay, these are the things that Colorado does not do well within the system that we run, because we run the same damn system, right? We know what the right checks look like. I'm interested to see, can Oregon hit explosives on Colorado, or does Colorado just drop everybody and try to get red zone wins?